He forged my signature. I forged his downfall. So here's how it all started. Last Thanksgiving, my mother-in-law, Evelyn, looked me dead in the eye and said, "You don't really fit into this family, Maya, but Ryan loves charity, so—" She smiled that kind of smile that people wear when they know they've hurt you and still expect you to thank them for it. I just stood there, holding a plate of mashed potatoes, pretending her words didn't burn right through me. I grew up in a small town in New Mexico, daughter of a mechanic and a school teacher. We never had much, but we had respect. When I married Ryan Reynolds, no, not that one, everyone said I'd married up. He was from the Ridgeway family, old money, old rules, and a last name that opened doors I didn't even know existed. For a while, I thought I'd earned my place. I worked as an interior designer, small gigs at first, then a contract for a boutique hotel in Santa Fe. I thought success would make them see me differently. Spoiler, it didn't. Every Sunday, Evelyn would invite herself over for brunch. She'd comment on everything, the flowers, the curtains, even the way I buttered my toast. "That's dolt," she'd say, as if bold was another word for wrong. Ryan would just laugh and say, "That's just mom being mom." But every time she spoke, a small piece of me folded inward. It's funny how disrespect doesn't always sound loud. Sometimes it whispers like perfume, sweet and suffocating. Then there was Amber. I didn't know much about her back then, except that she was Ryan's new project coordinator. She was young, polished, with that kind of confidence that made people underestimate her. Evelyn adored her. "She's so refined," she'd say, while looking straight at me. I told myself I was overreacting. Jealousy wasn't my thing, but something about their smiles, the shared glances, felt off. Still, I buried it. I had work to do. The hotel project was my shot, my first big design under my name. Every night I'd stay up sketching ideas, adjusting color palettes, dreaming about finally being recognized for my craft. Ryan would walk in, kiss my forehead, say, "You're overworking again, babe," and go back to his phone. I never asked who he was texting. That's the thing about love. It makes you ignore the obvious until it slaps you across the face. One night, I walked into the kitchen for some water. His phone was on the counter, screen lit up. A message popped up. "Can't wait for tonight. Red looks amazing on you." I froze. It wasn't from me. My chest felt heavy, like the air had thickened. I didn't cry, didn't scream. I just stared at that message until the screen went dark again. Ryan walked in seconds later, acting normal, and said, "You okay?" I smiled, the kind of smile that hides a storm. "Yeah, just tired." The next morning, Evelyn dropped by unannounced, like she always did. She brought muffins and unsolicited advice. A woman should always know her place, Maya, especially in families like ours. I remember thinking, ours? And realizing that word didn't include me. She left her coffee half drunk on the counter, her lipstick mark still fresh. It looked like evidence. That night, I called Mark, an old college friend who now worked as a private investigator. I didn't even plan to say the words that came out. "Mark, I think my husband's cheating on me, and I think his mother's helping him." There was a long silence on the line before he said, "You sure you want to know the truth?" Truth. That word used to sound clean, but that night, it felt like the beginning of something messy, something I might not survive. Mark didn't take long. 2 days later, he called me and said, "Maya, we need to talk in person." When someone says that with that tone, you already know it's bad. We met at a small diner off Route 66, the kind with peeling red booths and coffee that tastes like regret. He slid a manila folder across the table without saying a word. I opened it, and there it was, Ryan and Amber, walking out of a hotel, laughing like they didn't just destroy a 12-year marriage. I felt like someone had punched the air out of my lungs. The world didn't spin, it just stopped. I didn't cry, I just stared at those photos until the coffee in front of me went cold. Mark cleared his throat. "There's more," he said, pulling out a small recorder. "You might want to hear this." It was Evelyn's voice, smooth, calm, poisonous. "She's not Ridgeway material," she said. "After the divorce, we'll make sure everything stays in the family, the house, the business, even the dog if necessary." Then came Amber's giggle, high-pitched, fake, the kind that makes your skin crawl. "You really think she won't fight back?" Evelyn laughed softly. "Oh, she'll try, but she's predictable. She'll fall apart like they all do." That's when something in me flipped. I'd spent my whole life trying to be the polite one, the peacemaker, the understanding wife who doesn't make a scene. But that night, I looked at my reflection in the diner's window, hair messy, eyes red, and I thought, enough. If they wanted me broken, they'd have to earn it. I didn't tell Ryan what I knew. I went home, cooked dinner, smiled when he walked in, and even listened when he complained about how stressful work had been. He kissed my cheek before bed, and I almost laughed. The audacity of that man. I slept maybe an hour that night. I kept thinking about everything I'd lost. The trust, the dignity, the time, and realized I wasn't going to lose anything else. Over the next few weeks, I became an actress in my own life. I played the role of the clueless wife so well that even Ryan seemed relieved. He'd leave earlier for meetings, come home smelling like expensive perfume, and tell me he was exhausted. I'd nod, pour him whiskey, and record everything. Every word, every excuse, every lie. I even got him on tape saying, "Once this is over, I'll finally be free." That sentence would later save me more than any lawyer ever could. Meanwhile, I started digging into the finances. Ryan thought I didn't understand numbers, but I'd managed the household bills for years. Turns out, my loving husband had been quietly transferring money from our joint accounts to a shell company under his name, Ridgeway Holdings LLC. Cute, right? I copied every transaction, every date, every suspicious withdrawal. Then I noticed something that made my blood boil. He'd even taken money from my design business, the one I built from scratch while he called it my little hobby. I kept my poker face at home, but during the day, I turned my pain into power. I threw myself into work, the hotel project. My clients had no idea that behind my polite smile, I was stitching my life back together with anger and caffeine. One of them, an older man named Henry, noticed something was off. "You seem different, Maya," he said one day, handing me coffee. I smiled. "Just motivated." He chuckled. "Good. Motivation builds empires." Funny thing is, I think that was the first time anyone outside my circle believed I was capable of something bigger. The day everything shifted was the day Evelyn showed up at my office uninvited. She waltzed in like she owned the place, wearing pearls and perfume that could knock out a horse. "Oh, this is where you work," she said, scanning the studio like it was a garage sale. "So humble." I clenched my jaw. "Can I help you with something?" She smiled. "Ryan and I are just concerned about your mental health, dear. We want to make sure you're stable when the time comes." The time comes. That phrase stuck with me all day. She wasn't warning me. She was rehearsing my downfall. I called Mark that night. "She's planning something soon," I said. "Then we'll be ready," he replied. From that moment on, I documented everything. I planted a camera in the living room, hidden inside a flower vase. I backed up every file, every receipt, every call. Ryan's arrogance made it easy. He'd brag on the phone with his lawyer about how airtight their case was. I almost felt insulted by how little they thought of me. Almost. One night, when Ryan was out working late, I drove to Evelyn's house. I still had a spare key from years ago. She'd given it to me in case of emergencies. I guess this counted. Her office smelled like lavender and expensive secrets. I found a locked drawer, but I'd watched enough true crime shows to know where rich people hide keys. Behind fake books, inside decorative bowls. It was under a porcelain angel. Inside the drawer were files, photos of me, notes in Evelyn's handwriting. Maya raised her voice during dinner, unstable. Maya refused to attend charity event. Antisocial tendencies. Page after page of lies. And then I found the letter, addressed to Dawson and Cole attorneys, dated 3 weeks ago. It detailed a plan to declare me mentally unfit and cut me out of every shared asset. My hands were shaking, but I took pictures of everything. When I got home, I sat in the car for an hour, staring at my house, my home, knowing every smile inside it had been fake. It was around midnight when I finally walked in. The living room smelled like whiskey and betrayal. Ryan was asleep on the couch, TV still on, a football game muted on the screen. I looked at him, at the man I once thought I'd grow old with, and felt nothing. No sadness, no rage, just clarity. They thought they were writing my ending. What they didn't realize was, I was already writing theirs. The morning of the hearing, I woke up before dawn. The sky was that pale gray color that makes everything feel quiet and heavy, like the world itself is holding its breath. I poured myself a cup of coffee I didn't drink, put on the navy suit I'd bought at a thrift store, and looked in the mirror. I didn't look like the woman they thought they'd break. I looked like someone about to set a match to everything false. At the courthouse, Ryan was already there, wearing his smug grin like a badge of honor. He was talking to his lawyer, that young guy who probably charged $600 an hour just to nod. Amber sat 2 rows behind, legs crossed, chewing gum like she was in a teen drama, not a court hearing. And Evelyn? Of course she was there, pearls and all, whispering something into Ryan's ear, before turning to give me that patronizing smile that used to make my stomach twist. Not anymore. I just nodded, the kind of nod that says, "Go ahead, underestimate me one more time." My lawyer, Denise, leaned toward me and whispered, "You sure you want to do this yourself?" I smiled. "Oh, I'm not doing anything, Denise. Karma's about to take the mic." She looked confused but didn't ask. Smart woman. When the session started, Ryan's lawyer stood up first, painting a picture of a troubled, emotionally unstable wife who had become erratic and unfit to manage joint assets. The words rolled off his tongue like he'd practiced them in the mirror. He even gestured toward me, polite but condescending. Evelyn dabbed her eyes with a tissue she didn't need. Amber was smirking. I could practically hear the soundtrack of their arrogance playing in the background. When it was my turn, I stood up, calm as stone. "Your Honor," I said, "before we continue, I'd like to submit additional evidence for the court to review." Ryan's lawyer tried to object, but Judge Harper raised a hand. "We'll allow it. Proceed, Ms. Reynolds." I walked forward and handed over the manila envelope, the same one I'd kept hidden under my floorboard for weeks. It felt heavier than it should have, like it carried every sleepless night I'd endured. The judge opened it, scanned the papers, then nodded to the clerk. "Play the audio file." The room went silent, except for the faint static from the speaker. Then came Evelyn's voice, clear as glass. "She's not Ridgeway material. Once the divorce goes through, we'll have her declared unstable. We'll make her look like she's losing it." And then Amber's laugh followed, sickly sweet. "You think she'll fight back, Evelyn? She doesn't have the spine." The silence after that recording was delicious. You could hear someone swallow in the back of the room. Ryan's face drained of color. Evelyn's hand froze midair, tissue still pressed to her cheek. Amber shifted uncomfortably in her seat, suddenly very interested in the floor. Judge Harper's brow furrowed. "Mr. Reynolds," she said slowly, "would you care to explain these recordings?" Ryan stuttered. That's taken out of context." The judge raised an eyebrow. "Is there a context where conspiring to defraud and gaslight your spouse becomes acceptable?" The courtroom chuckled. Even the clerk tried to hide a grin. I stayed silent, hands folded, heart pounding but face calm. Ryan's lawyer scrambled to recover, muttering something about inadmissible evidence. Judge Harper cut him off. "Not when it exposes a coordinated attempt to manipulate the court." Overruled. She turned back to me. "Ms. Reynolds, please continue." I nodded and slid another folder forward. Bank records, signed transfers, shell accounts. "These are joint assets Mr. Reynolds moved without my knowledge. The transactions line up with the dates Mrs. Ridgeway and Ms. Thompson, excuse me, Amber, discussed keeping everything in the family." The emphasis on family earned a few gasps. Evelyn looked like she'd swallowed a lemon whole. Amber blurted out, "That's not true, we were just—" The judge's gavel came down hard. "You will remain silent unless spoken to." The tone was sharp enough to cut glass. Amber slumped back, eyes wet, mascara streaking. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. Evelyn leaned forward, her voice trembling but still sharp. "This is absurd. You have no idea how this family operates," the judge snapped. "Mrs. Ridgeway, sit down, and I'll remind you. Perjury and interference carry consequences, no matter how much money you think you have." The gallery murmured. For the first time, Evelyn looked small. Ryan tried one last time to salvage his pride. "Maya, we don't have to do this," he said, voice low, trying that same fake charm that once made me believe him. "We can settle this quietly, for old time's sake." I met his eyes. "Old times? You mean before you cheated on me, stole from me, and tried to convince a judge I was crazy?" He looked away. I took a breath. "No, Ryan, I'm done being quiet." The judge leaned back in her chair, clearly amused and a little impressed. "You know," she said, "I don't usually comment during hearings, but I think we can all agree. Karma showed up early today." The whole room laughed. Even the bailiff smirked. I bit back a smile. In her final ruling, Judge Harper ordered a full financial audit, immediate restitution of my share, and referred potential fraud charges to the district attorney. Ryan's assets were frozen pending investigation. Evelyn's access to the family trust was suspended. Amber? Well, her name showed up in enough documents to make her lawyer start sweating bullets. When it was over, I walked out of that courtroom into the bright New Mexico sun. Ryan followed me out, calling my name, saying, "We can fix this." I turned around, looked at him, really looked, and said, "You already fixed it, Ryan. You fixed me." And then I walked away. Funny thing about justice. It doesn't always look like fireworks or dramatic music. Sometimes it's just a quiet click of heels down courthouse steps, knowing you didn't need to destroy anyone to win. They did that all by themselves. For the first time in years, the house felt quiet in a good way. Not the kind of silence that used to sit heavy between me and Ryan at dinner, but the kind that comes after a long storm finally passes. I didn't rush to fill it with music or chatter. I just let it breathe. I remember standing in the kitchen a week after the hearing, sunlight spilling through the blinds, and realizing that was my kitchen now, my space, my peace. Funny how something as simple as making coffee in silence can feel like freedom. The news about the Ridgeways spread faster than wildfire. Small towns love two things: gossip and justice. And this story had both. People whispered about Evelyn losing her seat on the Ridgeway Foundation board, about Amber's mysterious sabbatical from the company, and about Ryan's frozen accounts. Someone told me he'd moved into a rental apartment downtown. When I pictured him in that plain beige place, with no maid, no marble countertop, and no one to lie to, I'll admit, I smiled. Not out of cruelty, just closure. He called me once after the hearing, left a voicemail saying, "I just want to talk." I listened to it twice, not because I missed him, but because I wanted to make sure I didn't. He sounded small, like all the confidence he wore as armor had finally cracked. I didn't call back, not because I was angry anymore, but because some conversations just don't need to happen. You can't explain to someone that you've moved on when they're still trying to rewrite the past. Evelyn, on the other hand, tried to save face. She sent me a letter, handwritten, perfumed, the kind only rich people still think counts as sincerity. It said, "Families go through difficult times. I hope we can one day find mutual understanding. No apology, just spin." I didn't reply. I framed the letter and hung it in my office. A reminder that not every wound deserves closure, some just deserve boundaries. Speaking of the office, business started booming. After the trial, people suddenly wanted to work with that designer who took on the Ridgeways. I didn't plan it, but apparently integrity sells better than any marketing campaign. I hired 2 assistants, moved into a downtown studio with big windows, and started a new project. A women's shelter renovation funded by, ironically, the same charity Evelyn used to chair. When the board approved my proposal, I laughed so hard I cried. One afternoon, while I was at the construction site, an old client, Henry, the hotel owner, stopped by. He handed me a coffee and said, "You've changed, Maya," I asked. "For better or worse?" He grinned. "You walk like someone who knows exactly who she is. That's always better." It hit me harder than I expected. For so long, I'd let other people define my worth as a wife, a daughter-in-law, a woman. But now I was finally defining it myself. I won't lie. Healing wasn't instant. There were nights I woke up from dreams where Ryan was still lying beside me, pretending. Sometimes I'd see a couple holding hands at the grocery store and feel that sharp sting of what I'd lost. But every time I reminded myself, I didn't lose love. I lost manipulation disguised as love. And that's not really a loss, is it? A few months later, I ran into Amber at the farmer's market. She looked different, thinner, pale, eyes tired. She froze when she saw me. I thought she might turn and run, but instead she walked up and said quietly, "I'm sorry." Just that. No excuses, no fake tears. I nodded. "I know," I said. She blinked, surprised. "You're not angry?" I smiled. "Oh, I was, but you don't carry poison forever, Amber. It eats you alive." She nodded slowly and walked away. I never saw her again. That night, I went home and poured myself a glass of wine. The sunset painted everything gold. I sat on the porch with my dog Max, the one they joked about keeping in the family. He rested his head on my lap, and for the first time in forever, I didn't feel like a supporting character in someone else's story. I felt like the author. It's weird, you know? People always talk about revenge like it's fire, something that burns and destroys, but for me, it was light. It didn't scorch me, it showed me the way out. The court didn't give me back my marriage, but it gave me back my voice. And once you get that back, no one can take it away. So yeah, they lost money, reputation, control, all that. But I gained something much bigger: peace, self-respect, the quiet confidence that comes when you realize you survived something meant to destroy you, and came out better, sharper, freer. Sometimes I think about what Evelyn said that day. She's not Ridgeway material. And she was right, I wasn't. I was never meant to blend into their world. I was meant to build my own. It's been a year since the day everything fell apart. Or maybe the day everything finally came together. People always ask me if I'd do it all again, if I'd still choose to walk through that fire knowing how much it would burn. And every time I tell them the same thing: absolutely. Because sometimes you have to lose everything fake to find something real, yourself. Life now is quieter, simpler, and honestly, a little boring in the best way possible. I wake up early, take Max for walks by the river, make my own coffee instead of rushing through a drive-thru, and every time I look around my little house, I think, this piece, I built it. Not with someone's last name, not with borrowed status, but with my own damn hands. Sometimes, though, I catch myself remembering the old days. Not out of nostalgia, but reflection. Like, how did I ever let people convince me that kindness was weakness? That being gentle meant I could be walked over? It's funny because the same people who called me too soft are now the ones who say, "You're stronger than anyone I know." Guess strength looks different when it's not wearing pearls and pretending. A few months back, I got invited to speak at a women's business event in Santa Fe. I almost said no. I'm not really the stand on a stage and inspire people type. But then I thought about that younger version of me, the one who kept quiet to stay likable, who swallowed her opinions just to keep the peace. She deserved to hear what I've learned. So I went. Standing up there, looking at all those faces, some tired, some hopeful, some pretending to have it all together, I told them the truth. You don't owe anyone your silence, I said. You don't owe them your smallness just to make them comfortable. And if someone ever tries to convince you that you're lucky to be tolerated, walk away. You're not lucky, they are. The room was dead silent for a moment. And then, one by one, women started clapping. Not loud, not dramatic, just steady, like a heartbeat. That sound stayed with me. After the event, a young woman came up to me. She said, "I was engaged to a man just like your ex. Controlling, manipulative. I didn't know how to leave until I heard your story." She hugged me like she meant it. And that's when it hit me. Maybe all the pain I went through wasn't just for me. Maybe it was meant to crack something open so someone else could escape through the same light. You know, I used to think revenge was about watching people fall. But now I get it. Real revenge is standing tall when they expected you to stay broken. It's living well, laughing loud, and not needing their approval to feel whole. Ryan's gone. Evelyn moved to Florida, of course. That's where all bitter people go to retire their grudges. Amber? I heard she started volunteering at a shelter. Maybe guilt can grow into something good, who knows. Last week, I finally took down the framed letter Evelyn sent me. I replaced it with a photo of the women from that shelter standing in the new lounge I designed. Bright walls, plants everywhere, sunlight pouring in. They look free. I guess that's what I was really after all along. Freedom, not revenge. Sometimes at night, I sit on the porch with Max and watch the sky shift from orange to indigo. The air smells like rain and dust, that New Mexico scent that feels like home. I think about everything that's happened, the lies, the trial, the loneliness, the healing, and I realize something simple. Pain changes people, but it doesn't have to ruin them. It can refine them. If you're listening to this and you're in your own kind of storm right now, the kind that makes you question everything about who you are, just remember, storms don't last. But the person you become after, that's forever. So yeah, maybe Evelyn was right. I wasn't Ridgeway material. I was something better. I was made of grit, grace, and a little bit of stubborn sunshine. And that's a legacy I'm proud to live with. Looking back, I've realized something I wish I'd known sooner. Silence doesn't keep the peace. It only protects the wrong people. For years, I thought being kind meant being quiet. That swallowing disrespect was just taking the high road. But the truth is, real strength isn't about enduring what breaks you. It's about standing up when you finally see your worth. Life has this way of testing you through people who underestimate you, dismiss you, or even try to erase you. But like my grandmother used to say, gold doesn't fear the fire. You only know what you're made of when everything fake has burned away. I learned that justice doesn't always come wrapped in revenge or apologies. Sometimes it looks like rebuilding your life in peace, knowing that the best payback is becoming someone they can't hurt anymore. Forgiveness, when it comes, isn't about letting them off the hook. It's about freeing yourself from carrying their poison. And trust me, that freedom feels better than any courtroom victory. If there's one thing I want anyone listening to take away from this story, it's this. Never let someone else decide how small you should be. Don't dim your light to fit inside someone else's shadow. You deserve spaces where your voice matters, where your kindness is strength, not weakness. So what about you? Have you ever had to reclaim your voice after being silenced? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Share your story in the comments. Hit that like button if this spoke to you. And don't forget to subscribe for more true stories that remind us what it means to rise again. Wherever you are, I hope tonight feels peaceful. That quiet kind of peace that comes after choosing yourself and never looking back.